Kia ora, what's up, what's going on? Welcome to my channel. My name is Shane over at Mod My Box, and today we will be working on the electronics for your Xbox 360 Slim that will fit inside of the X console. Let's get started. So first up, you're going to have to dismantle your Xbox 360 Slim. We're going to be using these parts here that you can see in the picture, which is the motherboard, the DVD drive, the Wi-Fi module, and the on and off slash synchronization module as well. Also going to need the hard drive holder along with the SATA and data cable. As you can see, it's one unit, and also the screw that holds it down. We're also going to be cutting off that extra length there behind the SATA cable on the plastic holder there, as you can see in this image. Here is a list of things you are going to need: double-sided tape, hot glue and a hot glue gun, double-sided tape, acrylic adhesive, RGB LEDs, solder flux, solder wick, and also some cutters or pliers. Also going to need a soldering iron, also wrapping wire, preferably in black and white to represent negative and positive, and you want these to be at least 1mm in diameter. Also going to need some heat shrink, preferably 1.5mm, so when it shrinks it'll be at least 1mm. Also you're going to need alligator clips to hold on to your wrapping wire so you can solder it. A 60mm fan. It can either have 2 wires or 3. 2 wires is just positive and negative, 3 wires is positive, negative, and the signal wire. The signal wire allows you to adjust the fan speed, whereas positive and negative does not. As you can see here, this fan unit only has positive and negative, and you can see on the bottom right hand corner that is the actual plug for the fan unit that sits on top of the heatsink on the motherboard. For the purposes of this video, I'm using a original Xbox fan unit. It only has the positive and negative wires. Going to need 2 momentary push button switches, zip ties. I'm also going to be using a digital microscope in some areas of the soldering. Here is a breakdown of the wire lengths. As you can see there, the fan, the sync button, and the LED is 500mm in length. The only one that is shorter is the on and off button, which is 350. And with your cable management, you can put 2 wires together, put them in an electric drill and twist them. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use cable or zip ties. This is the location for the fan unit. As you can see there, it is on the back end of the 360 console on the Slim. I'm going to start off by soldering in the wires for the fan, or the external cooling fan. This is located underneath the motherboard shown here. There are 4 pins. This is where the actual cooling unit for the motherboard actually plugs into. As you'll notice, I marked only 2 pins. One should be red, one should be black. If you want to control the actual speed of the fan, you will solder in the yellow wire. I'm only going to solder in the positive and negative. I'm going to keep the speed non-adjustable or constant. So I'm applying some solder flux here. Again, if you want to control the fan speed, you will solder in the 3rd wire, which is the yellow one. So now I'm pre-tinning, adding a bit of solder on there. Now we're going to solder in the wires. So one will be negative and one will be positive. If you get them round the wrong way, don't worry, it's not going to blow it up. You just swap them around if the fan is not moving when you power it up. Probably noticed that I'm using two red wires or two positive wires. This is because I had run out of the black or negative wire at the time of this filming. Now I'm going to apply some tape over the top of this. You can clean this area up. I'm not going to do this because I am keeping this for myself, so I'm not actually selling this to a customer. This is a demo. I'm just using regular insulation tape. Most of the time you would use Kapton tape or something similar. Now solder the other two wires to your fan unit on the other end. If it has a connector, cut it off and solder it together. Don't forget to add the heat shrink on each wire. Now plug it in and power it up. Turn it on to test to see if the fan is working or not. If it is not spinning, that means you've got the wires around the wrong way. All you have to do is just swap them out. And here I am powering it off. Next up is the LEDs. We're going to be using a empty capacitor slot, as you can see there, marked on the motherboard on the top end. It is not far from the fan plug. So if you're wondering which is positive and negative, if you cannot see the positive and negative sign on the board, the side that I'm putting the solder flux on first, on the left side, is the negative. As you can see there, that big silver line represents the negative. So now I'm going to add the flux and we're going to tin it. I'm going to add the wires. I'm going to start with the positive. And the negative. So I'm going to prep the RGB LED strip. We don't need solder flux for this, we can just apply the solder straight to it. So I'm going to do the 5V first, and then I'm going to select the G. The G stands for green, R for red, and B for blue. Because this is an Xbox, I'm just going to stick with the green. So I'm going to add the power wire, and then we're going to add another wire for the green. Going to cover it with some insulation tape. Again, you can either use that or Kapton tape or even hot glue. And here it is powered up. You must power it up to test it, to make sure that everything works before you put it into your console. Now we're going to solder in the on and off switch. So grab the front panel or the on and off panel, and as you can see here, this is just a quick image. I'll zoom in a second to show you which pins we are going to be soldering to. It is usually the second and third one. So here we go with the microscope. I've zoomed in a bit so you can see it. I'm going to come in with some solder flux on those two pins there. It doesn't matter which way you put the wire on. In other words, you can put the positive or the negative on pin 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. Again, I'm not going to clean this up, I'm just going to apply some tape to it. Throw your switch into the alligator clip and add some solder to it. In other words, we're going to tin the pins. So here we go. As you can see, I've already added solder to it on a previous job, so I'm going to reuse this. So just give it a bit of a touch up. So I'm coming in with the wires now. It doesn't matter which way you have them, as I said before, as it is universal. I'm not going to add any tape on the end of this or anything else until we insert it into the console itself. I will be adding a bit of hot glue. Now we're going to work on the sync button or the synchronization button. So we're going to add a bit of solder flux to the bottom pin and the one on the opposite side on the top. Going to tin it. When soldering in the wires, it doesn't matter what color you use or what orientation you use, because it is the same as the LED, it will just power on regardless. I'm going to leave this as is. I'm not going to put any tape on it. You cannot cover the synchronization button with any kind of tape, because it will press it down and it will hold it down, and your sync will keep moving around and around and around. I'm going to clean this one up just a little bit. You might be able to put a dab of hot glue, but at your own risk. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. Same thing again, throw the switch into your alligator clips and prep it for soldering. And just tin the ends. And apply your wires. So with this one, we're not going to apply anything to it, as we're going to hot glue or use double-sided tape. Now we're going to work on the power plug for the DVD drive. Originally it's around 100 to 110 millimeters in length, and we're going to make it longer, so it's going to be around 250. So your extension wires need to be at least 150 millimeters minimum. You don't want to have this any shorter, otherwise you're going to have issues trying to fit it all in the X console. Take your 1.5 millimeter diameter heat shrink and cut off at least 5 mil to 10 millimeters. So we want to go in and trim that heat shrink or tape. Remove it from the cables. Now we want to cut these down the middle, but we're going to work on one at a time. This way you will not confuse yourself on how to put it back together. Now go in and remove the sheath from the wires. I am using wire cutters. I do not need to use wire strippers because I've been doing this for a very long time. Now grab your wire holder and clamp down your wires and get them ready to be pre-tinned. Now go in with your solder and solder iron. A couple of seconds on each wire. Now come in with your extension wire and solder it together. Once one end is on, grab two pieces of your heat shrink and slide them on. Now we're going to solder up the other end. Once that's done, we want to slide the heat shrink over each of the solder joints. Grab your lighter or heat gun and heat up your heat shrink and shrink it. Once you've done the first one, repeat the process for the rest of them. So it should look like this once you've completed it. Now we're going to add tape around the heat shrink areas just to make it tidy and reinforce it. Also apply some to the center of the cables. I will not be adding a tutorial on how to hook up the eject button, as I think this is an afterthought. For me, it is just extra wires and a function that is not needed, as you can use the software to open and close the drive door. We've come to the end of this video. If you want to obtain the STL files for the X console, you can do so in the description below, and you can obtain these from the Cults 3D website and also my Patreon. Hope you've learned something today. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Cheers.